The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All right, well, one thing I think you know about me and Caleb Calhoun, it's that we speak our minds, share our opinions, even if it may be unpopular at times. Now, some people might say, well, Dave, that's not very wise when you're saying, hey, hit the like and subscribe button over and over. So I remind you to hit the like and subscribe button now, just in case I make you mad here in a second. You'll be subscribed and turn your notifications on, ring that bell. So we're going to get into something I feel very strongly about that a lot of you out there might not agree with, as the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We can all agree that other attorneys will settle and settle for less. They won't go to trial. Banks & Jones will go to trial. So I've heard a lot of Tennessee fans this week, and you are ultimately the bread and butter of what we do, that and SEC fans as we continue to expand. But Caleb, I'm going to discuss my thoughts on Tennessee's fan base in reaction to the loss to Arkansas, and I may make some people mad. Now, Caleb's actually done some advanced metrics that we're going to get to, and showing how the loss to Arkansas is not a big deal, which I'm not going to say not a big deal, but I'm closer to Caleb than I think some of Tennessee's fan base. Also, is Nico Iamaleava's confidence a concern? That'll be today's tough question, this day in Tennessee sports history. And on a very serious topic, how will the hurricane that's getting ready to hit Florida potentially affect the game? I've been around a couple of these games before, and it does have an effect. There are a lot of Florida football players that are going to be thinking about their families back in Florida when they make the trip to Knoxville. By the way, we were scheduled to have Edgar Thompson on for the Orlando Sentinel for a further breakdown of the Gators, but it's pretty crazy down there. Also, I want to remind people that you can donate to the ongoing flood efforts that it's just really, really bad in Northeast Tennessee. And if you want to give to that, you can. Here is the QR code for the Hurricane Helene Relief Fund. And Caleb, it's really worse than I even imagined. And part of the reason is, unlike the people in Florida, most of the people that lived in the mountains in Tennessee did not have what? They did not have flood insurance. I don't have flood insurance, and I live in a bit of a valley, but there's no water near me. Most people in East Tennessee don't have flood insurance. So again, I'm going to put the QR code up there as well. This goes directly to the people that were affected in the Appalachian region by Hurricane Helene. So give and know that we vetted this fund so that it goes straight to the people. And by the way, that's why Will West will not be able to join us. He's done a lot of fundraising and such for Hurricane Helene. It's just an absolutely terrible situation. And Caleb, when we discuss the hurricane that is about to hit Florida, I was talking to a gentleman in a construction company yesterday who also owns a foundation company, and he's headed down that way. And there's thoughts, and perhaps you follow this closer than I, that it could be every bit as bad as Katrina, as far as the impact and the flood surge, and just we'll keep everybody in my thoughts and prayers. And then we will talk sports. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. And one of the, the silver lining with Milton that wasn't there with Helene, the worst hurricane damages are the ones that don't do what you expected them to do. It's not about the scope and the power of the hurricane. It's about what was expected. I think, God willing, Milton, people in Florida prepared for it. It was kind of a known thing. It was coming. Whereas with Helene, one, nobody thinks a hurricane's going to affect that much inland in the Appalachian region. That was just totally, nobody was prepared for that. Nobody saw that type of flooding coming. That's where it's different. That was the problem with Katrina. Was not actually, it never actually hit New Orleans. It missed New Orleans. It's just nobody had prepared for where it was going to hit. And then the levee breach, no one saw that coming. And so the worst type of hurricanes are the ones that leave damage that no one's prepared for. We're praying to God that Milton doesn't do that.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a touch and go situation. I've got friends that live in South Florida, so I've reached out to them, and I mean they're probably out of the path, but when you hear storm surge is going to be at least 3 feet and 8 feet, they happen to live on an island, and 8 feet is evacuation, and they can't evacuate. I mean, because the bridges are already out. I mean, I don't know what that means. So a very serious situation, but again, we want to be sure and remember those Hurricane Helene, because quite honestly, I didn't realize how serious it was until a couple of days into last week. And my apologies on that. Sometimes I just get so caught in the weeds of what we're doing here as we continue to build off the hook sports. But think about others. And as always, if you would like to super chat and contribute to Caleb's 4-month-old son's college fund, you can. But no offense, Caleb, I'm going to encourage people to give it to Hurricane Helene and the relief fund on this particular day. So I want to see some people on that QR code. Check it out. And then if you feel like giving, we would greatly appreciate it. Obviously, we don't get anything from that. Also, 5 Gators to watch for the Vols. The injury report is out, which it doesn't look real good for Tennessee. And I don't really know what to think about Josh Heupel and the way he handles injuries. But I do know what to think about Tennessee's fan base. And it's time to stop for a second. And I want you to post this as a poll question. Has Tennessee's fan base overreacted to the loss against Arkansas? How about yes, they can still make the college football playoff? No, that was a terrible loss. And in this case, perhaps both can be true. But I've talked to a ton of people, an absolute ton of people that just don't seem to believe that Tennessee has any chance, at making the college football playoff, that yes, they might beat Florida. All is lost. Nico is an absolute wash. He is no good. Guys, let's take a second. We like to compare him to underclassmen who have made big impacts. And in a recent column, I pointed out Tim Tebow and Johnny Manziel. Well, Johnny Manziel didn't go undefeated. And I will just go ahead and tell you, Nico is of higher character. And Tim Tebow lost the game to Ole Miss, right, where he had the famous speech after that he technically stole from Percy Harvin, but that's neither here nor there.
Yes.
But none of these guys are perfect. And Nico Iamaleava is not perfect. Now, I think there is going to be a poster boy at some point for NIL gone too strong, too fast. It might be Nico, but I'm not even close to considering that. And I have every quarterback that I'm old enough to have seen the beginning of his career, I have seen him be confused. I'll give you a prime example. When I got back into this biz, I did some work for Saturday Down South, and they said, the irony of it is Alabama's the biggest program, but we don't ever get competent people to cover Alabama. And I said, I like to think of myself as competent. And they said, well, we agree. So I covered Alabama for that year. And it was Bryce Young's freshman year. And he looked fantastic. And I still say if he doesn't go to the Panthers, he would have been a solid NFL quarterback despite his size. But you and I know that it's a lottery in terms of where you go, whether or not you're going to be treated right and have a good franchise behind you. But I think we would both agree that Bryce Young was an elite college quarterback, right?
Totally agree.
Okay. Caleb, you would agree with this if I had the video, and I don't, but they had, his first game was against Miami, I believe. Is that correct?
Pulling it up now. Bryce Young game log 2021.
Okay, so nevertheless, he went for the first 3 or so games looking like he was too intent to get the ball downfield and just absolutely refused to run. Now, as a whole, I would rather have a quarterback that looks downfield, keeps his eyes downfield, and doesn't think run immediately. Would you agree with that, Caleb?
Totally agree.
However, he was lacking decisiveness when an easy 5, 7, 10 yards were there. And he would just kind of hang. This is outside the pocket. And he would just kind of hang back behind the line of scrimmage, trying to make something happen downfield. It didn't look like the Bryce Young that we saw in his later years. That very well could be Nico. And for Bryce Young, it was 3 or 4 games where I'm like, dude, just run. Make the defense respect your running ability just a little bit. I'm not saying be a running quarterback, but that's part of college football now. If you can't run at all, you're a sitting duck. You're Grayson McCall. And Tennessee may have that with Nico. A guy with a little uncertainty early, not the exact same. It's not running, but how he read the field against a Sam Pittman defense that was determined to give him different looks. So for you Tennessee fans that are just absolutely off the bandwagon, I don't get it. And I've been a little bit frustrated by the community and the fan base. There is still everything to play for. Caleb, I come from a time in which you lost to Florida, and 99.9% of the time, you were not going to be able to get back involved in a 2-team national championship game, right?
Correct.
Caleb, this is way different. It's all out there to play for. I know they've got issues at offensive tackle, but every team has an issue somewhere. Everything is still there to play for, Caleb.
I think we have to, and I'm going to say myself in this as much as Dave, probably even more because of the way I drove the train. I think we have to share some culpability in why the fans are overreacting, Dave. Because what have we been telling people for 2 years? Yes, Nico's young, he's kind of finding his groove. However, you and I have both insisted that this offense takes 2 weeks to figure out. That it's a very simple offense.
Years.
I'm sorry?
You mean 2 years?
No, 2 weeks. We both have agreed that Josh Heupel's offense takes 2 weeks to figure out, pretty much. That it's a very easy offense to figure out, to learn if you're a quarterback.
Oh,
we
okay.
even said it.
Okay. I got you. Okay, go ahead. I was going to lead another point, but it's similar. Go ahead.
We've said that it's an easy offense to figure out. We've said that Nico was created in a lab to run this offense. We've said he's a perfect fit for the offense, unlike Joe Milton was last year. So we said it would look like the 2022 offense with Hendon Hooker. We also said that more important for this offense is experience on the offensive line and experience at receiver. Tennessee has both of those things. So you go into the game, you go into the season thinking, okay, well, if those things are true, if Tennessee's defense is what it is, and it is, then you're thinking, oh, obviously Tennessee should be dominant. They should beat everybody because their offense is going to hold their weight. And then Tennessee had a bye week before the Arkansas game day. So I have to say the fan expectation for the offense, because of some of the stuff we said, and the idea of Josh Heupel coming off a bye week while Arkansas has been wrecked, fighting through a gauntlet of a schedule, I think it's reasonable. And I am going to get into the advanced metrics on why you don't have to panic in a second. But in terms of the fan emotion, I have to say it's reasonable for fans to think, wait a minute. If our offense can't win us this game at Arkansas off a bye week, how much trouble are we in?
Okay. Well, the poll question, has Tennessee's fan base overreacted to the loss at Arkansas? Yes, they can still make the college football playoff. 63% no, that was a terrible loss. You could probably be right on both of those. Now, you said 2 weeks. I'm going to say 2 years. Now, you might not want to hear this, but I think there's a very real chance that it takes 2 years to really get in the flow of this offense. And that's scary because I know a lot of people have a lot pinned on this year. I'm going to explain to you why after 30 seconds from Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Okay, so Andre Currick, how good was he last year compared to this year, Caleb?
He was significantly worse last year.
Okay. What was last year? His first year in the program, correct? And this is year number 2, right?
Correct.
Dante Thornton, what was he last year as he transferred in and as compared to this year?
He struggled significantly early last year.
Okay. Lance Hurd, we don't have the second year yet, but what has he done this year?
He's been terrible, and he should give his NIL money back.
Okay. I'm going to argue that the last part of what you said is not true. He's been terrible, but he shouldn't give his NIL money back. What do Tennessee's coaches continually say about this offense? It takes time to feel the whole concept of what you're supposed to do. So, Caleb, if it takes time to fill the whole concept of what you're supposed to do, and that's why some guys are better in year number 2, then is it absurd to think it may take Nico into his second year? I know that's not what anybody wants to hear, but I've just given you 2 examples of guys that have gone from to good. And I can't help but wonder if that's not across the board, especially at the quarterback position where you have to understand conceptual football, not just throw it to the open guy. I can tell by the look in your face you disagree with me.
Yes, because there's a giant flaw in this. Josh Heupel's first year at UCF. Let's just go all the way back to when he was an offensive coordinator at Missouri. When Josh Heupel took over as an offensive coordinator at Missouri, and this is back in 2016, he took over a terrible program. Missouri went to averaging 31 points a game. Now, you are right. The next year, they went to 37 points a game in the SEC, which is really impressive. Okay. Then Josh Heupel goes to UCF. And his first year at UCF, he goes undefeated and has a top 10 scoring offense, averaging 43 points a game. Then at Tennessee, in 2021, his first year with Hendon Hooker starting at quarterback, and all these guys, their first year in Josh Heupel's system, learning the offense, Tennessee averages 39.3 points a game and is in the top 10. Now, you are right. The second year, they get better, significantly so in all these situations. But it's very clear, based on what Hendon Hooker was able to do in 2021, based on what UCF was able to do in 2018, and based on what Missouri was able to do in 2016, that you can be very good in this offense your first year playing in it. Because otherwise, all those years, those offenses would have been terrible.
Okay, Hendon Hooker wasn't very good in his first year playing. As a matter of fact, he didn't, his first full year, but his first year when he subbed in for Joe Milton, he was great.
He threw for 31 touchdowns and 3 interceptions that year. He averaged 9.5 yards an attempt. I think he was pretty great. His pocket presence wasn't good. He had to take a sack. The team wasn't great, so they still went 7-6. I mean, the difference between, really, if we're being honest, the difference between 2021 and 2022, and this is kind of funny when you think about it, is the defense improved significantly. The offense improved, but the defense improvement was what made Tennessee go from 7-6 to 11-2.
Timothy, thanks for the super chat. That'll go to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. If anybody wants to do that, we're not going to ask you for ties like some other places. But Timothy says, when has Tennessee's fans ever overreacted? One loss fire drill, get rid of the staff or the head coach. To me, it's not get rid of the head coach. And we're going to discuss coaches on the hot seat, as there are some significantly on the hot seat that weren't before. And there are some that are more cemented in their position than ever before at the beginning of the season. Clark Lee, I'm talking to you. But listen, I got it. When back in the day, in the 2000s and the early 90s, or previous to a 14 playoff, if you lost to Florida, it was Katie barred the door. That season's over. This is no fun. And only one time, Caleb, when they slipped up to Memphis, literally, because a Memphis player had his elbow down, would they have actually gotten back into the hunt? Most of the time, you're totally out of the hunt throughout the 90s. You are still very much in the hunt. And I think of Nico Iamaleava, of here he was in Los Angeles. Nobody knew if his high school team won or lost on Friday. Nobody knew if USC or UCLA won on Saturday. It's LA. There's other stuff to do. But Caleb, he's hearing about this all the time. And it's a time, I think, to be supportive. I still go back to Sunday Sports Sound Off with our own friend Jimmy Himes, and he got calls about whether or not they should go the Gaston Moore direction. Can we all agree that that's just absurd?
Yes. No, you need to stick with what you're doing. Again, in the next segment, I'm going to make the case for Tennessee, and it's going to be a strong one, guys. You guys will all be very, very encouraged after I talk to you, because I'm brilliant and I can impart my brilliance into you guys, and you will be very, very encouraged.
Very humble as well. Game No Bueno, by the way, said Nico has not even come close to Hendon in 2021. Yeah. Y'all have amnesia. Oh, I'll stand corrected on that. That's fair.
Hooker's only issue in 2021 was his pocket presence, but you can make an argument that's because Cooper Mays wasn't fully healthy in 2021. Because it changed dramatically in 2022. So, look, while I will say that Tennessee's loss is not the freak out that everybody has, I'm just going to say, Dave, though, that the fan support is upset because of what they thought they had with the offense. They thought that if the defense could hold teams to under 20 points, which they've held every opponent to under 20 points so far this year, that they should be 5-0. And so I got to be honest, that's where I think the fan base gets it. It's how they've won and the level of expectation for how they won. If this was the night, okay, let me ask you this, Dave. Peyton Manning senior year, when he says he's coming back and everybody's excited, and you were following Tennessee at that time.
Yes, I would say the hype is very, very similar.
What if Tennessee one lost to Florida, which they did that year, but what if they also, under Peyton Manning, were putting up 20 points a game through the first half of the season? Fans would be upset because they'd be like, wait a minute, we have this Peyton Manning guy, what's going on?
Wait, that's Gators and Oranges. Okay, because he was coming into his senior year. I mean, and it's pointed out on the message board. I mean, people are saying they still believe in Nico. Good. And maybe that's a poll question, but right now, Caleb, this is still a very young guy. He is 20 years old. Ahmad says Nico still needs to grow. I believe in him, but he needs to let that ball go. He is holding on to it for too long. Yes, he is. But you have to ask yourself, Caleb, if you had to bet a mortgage payment or the super chats that have come in to support your 4-month-old son's college fund, if you had to gamble that on that was an unusual game against an Arkansas defense that manned up for Tennessee from a schematic standpoint, or that Nico's a dud, which would you bet young Quincy's college fund on? And you shouldn't be gambling that, by the way, you degenerate.
I would bet the former. I would bet the former. It was an unusual game. But I would also say that this isn't just about Nico. I think the red flags, we've been trashing the offensive tackles all week. The red flags with the offense that aren't Nico related are what has everybody concerned. I mean, again, we had Mike Stoll on yesterday, and he backtracked, but the first thing he said was their offensive line is soft. You heard that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I didn't think you backtracked. I think that soft in our minds is a little bit different than a player's mind. I think soft means you hit the snooze about 15 times and don't want to get up out of bed. I don't think that's what, and I've talked to a lot of players about this. I think soft means that they're not fundamentally sound and or they're hesitant because they're not sure what to do. So I don't think it means that, they're getting beat up by nerds when they go to econ.
Okay, well, look, it's not about Nico. It's the red flags of the offense in general. It may not even be Nico's fault. You can put it on the offensive line. But if you look at Josh Heupel's track record, his first year at places from UCF to Missouri to Tennessee, it doesn't matter how inexperienced people are in this offense. They put up points. And that's where I think people are concerned. It'd be one thing if, to give you a quick example, for guys who don't know this, it's ironic that I don't know why Philip Fulmer hired Dave Clawson. We can talk about that, but one of the biggest reasons that was a mistake.
I'd rather not.
Well, one of the biggest reasons.
I told him not to, and I said you're going to be the head coach here for 5 more years if it's Trooper Taylor. But anyway,
well, Dave Clawson. One of the reasons it was a mistake was Dave Clawson. The offense he installs is very, very heady. There's a lot of thinking, so it literally takes you have to be in the offense for 3 years before you really pick it up, and that's everywhere he's been. If you look at everywhere Dave Clawson's been. Year 3, he really takes off with his program. He's very good with that. Fulmer didn't need a heady offense there.
Well,
now, but Josh
he also didn't need somebody that he knew he could push around that didn't believe in the same things he believed in. So, I mean, that's why you could have hired Trooper Taylor and it could have been a conglomerate of putting ideas together, or you hire somebody like Gus Malzahn, who was at Tulsa and putting up the top offensive numbers in the nation, and turn it over to him and say, I'm not touching the offense. Philip Fulmer, I hate this term, split the baby and didn't do either.
Yes, no, that's very true. I agree with you on all that. But to wrap this up, the comparison is just that Dave Clawson's offense takes forever to get figured out. Josh Heupel's offense, again, the history is there. The track record is there. Players figure it out the first year in the system. He's been amazing offensively at every place he's been his first year.
Yeah.
So that's why I can't give. That's why I think the red flag is there.
Okay. Red flag, fine. What's the poll question? Where do we stand on that? As early look at the poll question brought to you by the UPS store Hardin Valley. They're there to help individuals and small businesses by offering a wide range of products and services locally owned and operated and conveniently located to 10629 Hardin Valley Road, 10629 Hardin Valley Road. Where's our poll question now, Caleb Calhoun?
Has Tennessee's fan base overreacted to the loss at Arkansas? 64%, yes, they can still make the CFP. 36%, no, that was a terrible loss.
Okay, so I don't understand with all there is left to play for. I mean, you have got to change your mentality some, just like in the NFL. You see your team lose and you say, hey, there's now 16 more games to go. Ahmad said, I agree with Caleb on this one. This O-line needs to get back on track. We were talking about this O-line like they were the best thing ever through weeks 1, 2, or 3. Now, I will say this. I think that's the biggest of all concerns. And I think I've stayed pretty consistent on offensive tackles. Caleb,
before we move on,
yes.
And maybe this is a topic for another day, so maybe you should say this, but Justin Lefevre says that is calling for Larry Johnson to start at left tackle over Lance Hurd, and that could fix the issues. That may be true.
I'm fine with that.
But I have to ask you this, Dave. Is this where NIL is becoming a problem? Are we sure that there aren't some people in Heupel's here saying, we gave Lance Hurd a good bit of money, and so you need to start him?
Let's talk about that tomorrow.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Caleb Calhoun has analytical proof that the loss to Arkansas wasn't that bad. Now, I've spent the beginning of the show telling you that you shouldn't overreact because there's a college football playoff spot still within your grasp. But I don't know where Caleb's going here. Bizarro World, maybe, if you're familiar with Superman Bizarro. Me like Caleb, B don't know what Caleb talking about. That's Bizarro Superman impression for those that don't know. All right, so and I agree with what Orange Blood said. Margin for error is so small. Bama and UGA are most likely risk for losses. Losing to Arkansas significantly reduces playoff chances. I got you. But Caleb's going to tell us analytically why the loss is not that significant. All right, Caleb, good luck, because to me, even though I think Tennessee's fan base has overreacted in a negative fashion, it looks like a pretty darn ugly loss to me. Please click that thumbs up button. Go, Caleb.
Okay, so let's first off just take before I go analytically, let's just take the broad forest for the trees moment. And we kind of brought this up in the first segment, so we'll bring it up now. In what era of SEC football in history does losing a close road game to an SEC team with a winning record when you have a redshirt freshman starting at quarterback become cause for concern?
Throughout my life, and Kentucky has gotten better, but throughout my life, other than Kentucky and Vanderbilt, that should be totally within the realm of possibility for most every team. As a matter of fact, I can recall times when Stetson Bennett wasn't a very good Georgia quarterback, and they struggled on the road as well. Alabama had issues with their offense before Lane Kiffin took over and changed it up there. So I think, yes, every program with a young quarterback and unproven offense, which is what it turned out to be, can lose to any SEC opponent not named Vanderbilt and Kentucky. And now that's up for grabs.
All right. Now, I'm going to go into the numbers of the ESPN FBI breakdown in a second, but let me also start with this. Based on SP+, FBI, the analytical data of home versus road games, Nick Saban won 2 national championships with losses worse than Tennessee's loss to Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
And it was before the college football playoff. It was in the BCS era. And I'm going to give you guys 2. 2003, when he was at LSU. Do you remember when he lost at home to Ron Zook's Florida Gators?
Mm-hmm.
Dave, let's be honest. That Zook Florida team at home, or this Arkansas team on the road, when you factor in home road, the Zook Florida team at home was a worse loss. By far. Not even close.
Okay, I think you're right, but let's if Arkansas loses the rest of their games, then it looks a lot different. But I think you're right.
Yes. The one that's more debatable, but FPI, again, factors in home and road. So the one that you could say is more debatable, but if you actually break it down analytically, it's not, is Texas A&M 2012, the Johnny football game. That actually is technically a worse loss for Alabama than Tennessee's loss at Arkansas is. Remember, guys, Arkansas is 2 plays away from being undefeated. They're 2 plays away from being 6-0 right now. Okay, this is a very, very dangerous team. So let me just break down some numbers for you real quick. Arkansas is number 24 in the FPI strength of record. Number 24 in the FPI overall. Their strength of record is number 28. Their strength of record is number 15. And they were, again, 2 plays away from being undefeated. Tennessee has the number 19 ranked strength of record. Now, their strength of schedule is number 51. Dave, you ready for this?
Yes.
Nobody with a higher strength of schedule than Tennessee is undefeated right now. The top 52 toughest schedules in football. Every team playing in the top 52 is undefeated. The highest ranked strength of schedule for an undefeated team right now is BYU at number 53. The top 4 teams in the AP poll, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, and I believe Penn State, are in the bottom 10 in the nation in strength of schedule right now. Those 4 teams.
That's crazy.
Say all of that one more time because it bears repeating.
The top 4, okay. No team with a higher strength of schedule than Tennessee is undefeated this year. No team, not one. The top 4 teams in the AP poll right now, as we speak, are in the bottom 10 in the nation in strength of schedule. And what this is telling us is that 2 things. One, just based on the fundamentals and history, even if it was the BCS era, this loss to Arkansas would not be cause to panic, quite honestly, because it's not a bad loss when you break it down. There's nothing bad about losing to a team with a winning record in the SEC on the road when that team is 2 plays away from being undefeated. The other point about this is that, again, there's the expanded playoff, but there's so much parity now in college football, and that is more clear than there's ever been before.
Okay. Who was one of the first people to say that?
That was you. You are right. You brought that up.
I think the level of play has gone up in college football, and I think that a 10-2 season is going to be incredible from now on. Whereas you might have looked at that if you're Alabama or Georgia and go, oh man, I lost 2 games. I think everybody there were so many players that I covered. I'm not going to name the player, but I remember one time we were doing a remote, and the guy didn't play a lot as much as he should have because of running backs in front of him. You can probably guess who I'm talking about. And I remember doing a remote with him, and I said, if you could change anything about your college career, and this is surrounded by Tennessee fans at a liquor store of all places, and they probably wanted to break into that Jim Beam after he said this. And I said, if you could change anything about your college career, what would it be? He goes, well, I wouldn't come to Tennessee. Okay. Well, there were so many resentful players that I covered that I go back to Kelly Washington. Everybody thinks he was a cancer on that team. Guys, there were 3 other players worse. And there were that many resentful players because they thought they should get paid, and they were trapped in what should be an absolutely illegal contract in which you can tell an 18-year-old that you're tied to this letter of intent for 5 years, but we only have to adhere to it for 1 year, which is what it was. And the fact that if they transferred, a coach could say you have to pay your own way because you're not released. Can you imagine back in the days when, let's say, Flojo, okay? I'm just taking an amateur athlete before we got all the money involved. But if you said, oh, you did something wrong, so we're going to give you a financial penalty, that's what they did. They were so tied they couldn't go anywhere. So, Caleb, I don't think you have that half dozen to a dozen resentful players on each and every team, not just Tennessee. That just happens to be who I covered. And I think they also realize that if they play hard and if they have success, there'll be more cash there for them. So, yes, I think the margin of error is much closer game to game. And I would not be surprised if the SEC does not have a one-loss team. If everybody's 10-2. Now that'll be mass chaos, which will be fun for all of us. But I think it's that close. I mean, for the love of all that's holy, guys, Vanderbilt just beat Alabama.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny enough you bring this up about Vanderbilt. What did they do? They hired Jerry Kill, who's just a great offensive mind, and they got their quarterback, Diego Pavia, out of New Mexico State. Dave, in any other era, would Vanderbilt have been able to just go randomly find their quarterback to fit this one system?
No.
Yeah.
So you're able to address needs. Now, we could argue that with Lance Hurd, but you're able to address needs and be a better football program because of NIL and because of the transfer portal. And if you like watching great football, the football is better. But just you need to take that whole notion of, it's time to run the table. Caleb, I'll just go ahead and go on record. I don't think that as long as you and I are working together, there will be a team that actually goes undefeated, that goes 12, 13, 14, 15. It would be 16-0.
Let's see, 12.
They'd
have to win your conference title. 16-0. Yeah, you have to go 16-0.
Yeah, Tennessee had some coaches saying before the season they wanted to go 17-0. That would be very difficult because you'd have to play in your conference championship game
and not get a first round bye.
And I don't know, scrimmage yourself. I don't know how that would work. But anyway, that's what they were saying. But the point is, I'll ask you, are we going to see a team go undefeated, run the table like Georgia did, or because of the college football playoff and because of NIL, transfer portal, all that stuff, are those days behind us? Because I'll go ahead and tell you, I think they are.
Oh, I think they absolutely are. Basically, what you're saying, Dave, is we're going to see what we saw in the 2007 season. Do you remember the wild ride of 2007 where nobody wanted to be number 1 or number 2 and they kept losing? And that's how Les Miles got his team to the national title with 2 losses because Les Miles said, and I quote, "We are the only team in the nation to be undefeated in regulation." And I mean, he was right because they lost both their games in overtime, and the voters bought that. And they're like, hey, he's got a point. They put him in the national title game. And I mean, we're kind of hitting that era again. What did Dave and I tell you guys last week? What did we say? We said on Friday, we said, watch out. Chaos is coming. Because what did we say? And Josh Pate said it on Thursday before, so I want to give him credit. We both looked at the slate of games. There was one top 25 game that week. It was Missouri and Texas A&M, and everybody knew Texas A&M was going to blow them out because Missouri was the most fraudulent undefeated team ever. But we looked at a bunch of other teams, and there were about 7 of them. 7 top 15 teams were playing unranked teams on the road that all had winning records and that all were a play or two away from being undefeated. I mean, Miami and Cal, again, that was my super dog. Miami did win, but barely. Cal's one play away from being undefeated. Vanderbilt, you can say what you want, but Alabama at Vanderbilt, they lost to Georgia State and Missouri, both on the last play. They could easily be undefeated. Tennessee played Arkansas. Arkansas could easily be undefeated right now. Again, 2 plays away from being undefeated. And you could go down the list and that was happening. And what we're saying is, this was always true with college football. It's more true than ever, Dave. You're not necessarily what your record says anymore in college football. And what I mean by that is, I think more than ever, and this has always been true in the NFL, right? In the NFL, if it's like week 12 or something, a 6-5 team plays a 10-1 team, there may not be that much of a gap between the two. It could just be the ball bounced a couple of different ways.
Let me ask you this too. If Arkansas doesn't have Addison Nichols and Nico Slaughter because of the transfer portal and or NIL, depending on what shook down there, what's the score of that game and who wins? Portions of the program brought to you by Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Tennessee dog walks Arkansas if they don't have Nico Slaughter, who provides insight into Tennessee's offense. Same thing for Addison Nichols. Plus, they wouldn't have 2 starters. That's because of NIL. That's because of the transfer portal. That's drawing teams closer together. Your new goal is not to go undefeated like in 1998. Your new goal is to win 10 games and hope the chips fall in your favor.
Yeah, you're right. And I'll take it a step further, Dave. I'm wondering if 10 games isn't enough to even get a bye now. I mean, I'm starting to look at the slate, and with the exception of Ohio State, don't you think it's possible every single team in college football has 2 losses this year before the conference championship week?
If you'll let me include the conference championship week, I'm 100% on board. I'm like 70% on board before that week.
Okay.
But I could easily see let's say Georgia and Alabama in a rematch, and I could see Georgia winning that game. So yeah, I think or Alabama and Vanderbilt in a rematch. It's that close. I'm telling you, it's very, very close.
I'm with you, and you may know this. I didn't know that General Ursus points it out. So Bill Parcells is the one who says we are what our record says. I thought he was a smart coach, because that's one of the dumbest things you could ever say in football is that you are what your record says, and because that's just not the way football works.
Yeah, but I understand what he's saying.
But it's and one of the things that's becoming more true, and we'll say this about Oklahoma with Tennessee. The other phrase that I say is becoming more and more true, and I'm going to do a better job of this. We did a pretty good job of it, actually, because we were sounding the alarm with Oklahoma. But don't accept things in a win that you wouldn't accept in a loss. Right, Dave? Mm-hmm. And I think that Tennessee maybe accepted some of the offensive issues they had at Oklahoma because they won that game. I mean, that's rule number 1 in the NFL, isn't it? As a Cowboy fan, the Cowboys are the worst at that, right? They look past their flaws and wins, don't they?
Yeah.
And-
This day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by Quality Tire.
I love his change right there. He's like,
I
I don't
know.
want to talk about that.
Yeah, let's just move on. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957, which just happens to be the last year that the Cowboys won a playoff game. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more, all work covered by a nationwide warranty. QualityTirePros.com. Stop in, have your car serviced there. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports said, hey, Bo, QualityTirePros.com, QualityTirePros.com. Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history is?
So, on this day, back in 1998, of all years, Tennessee marched into Athens with the news earlier in the week that Jamal Lewis had suffered a season-ending injury.
Yes.
All of College Game Day picked Georgia because Georgia was undefeated that year.
Yes.
They were the upstart franchise with Jim Donnan and Quincy Carter, and they were finally going to end their losing streak to Tennessee. And all of College Game Day picked Georgia. Georgia was favored, and Tennessee's season was done. They lost Jamal Lewis. There's no way that they're going to win a national championship now. And after a 9-3 lead at halftime, David Cutcliffe reportedly tells T. Martin, if you can't run the offense, we'll find someone who can. And Tennessee unleashes on Georgia in the second half and ends up winning the game 22-3. Probably the most significant game of that year. If you ask me.
Remember this too. Like 6 weeks before that, in Tennessee's final scrimmage, Tennessee's offense literally could not get a first down against the defense. Literally. I've talked to David Cutcliffe about it. So you have basically 4 scrimmages, and the last one's just like a special teams walkthrough. But the significant scrimmage is the next to last. Tennessee could not get a first down. I'm not saying they couldn't score. Scoring was a dream. I mean, they couldn't get a first down.
That's incredible. You covered that game, right? The game in Athens?
Yeah.
In 98?
Yeah.
I'm guessing, is it true that like y'all walked away from that game? Because it seemed like the sentiment with Tennessee was, oh, this team's really, 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 really good. And this team
98. No, I'm sorry. I did not cover that game, but I will tell you this in my book, and feel free to purchase that if you'd like. Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind Tennessee's 1998 national championship. To a man, everybody that I talked to said, you know, you and I probably thought it was the Florida game, maybe the Arkansas game later in the year, but they all told me to a man, it was that Georgia win that you pointed out where everybody believed they could do something special. It really wasn't even Florida previously. Yeah. Because if you remember, that was the Al Wilson game, forcing turnovers. And if they don't go that way, Florida easily could have won that game.
Yes, Tennessee easily could have started 0-2 that year. And so there were probably a lot of questions about them. And by the way, the week before against Auburn, that was a bad Auburn team, and that was a hideously ugly win for Tennessee at Auburn that week.
Tomorrow, we are giving away our weekly prize, which will be a Celebrate 98 book that you can see right over my shoulder. You do have to be a paid member of Hooker's Corner to register for that. And we'll have our drawing tomorrow where we'll give away a book. So go ahead and click on that QR code right there. And it's just $9.98 a month. Update on Lagonza Hayward is there, and another recruiting update going up later today. So if you're a member of that, you get increased recruiting coverage. You also get more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun, and the opportunity to win our monthly grand prize, which this month is a mini autographed helmet, and it's autographed by Dylan Sampson. But if you just want to be a free member, there's that QR code again. You can be a free member so that we can communicate easier, because we want you to be a part of the crew. So you can be a free member, and you will be registered for Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge. And that is, we'll give away a Garmin when we hit 8,000 subscribers, which is just right around the corner. And all you have to do is be a free member of Hooker's Corner. If we can drop that in the chat, I'd appreciate it. And Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Don't forget their affordable fire opals. They want to be your jeweler. Fire opals are awesome. A Tennessee tradition. So go ahead and be a part of Hooker's Corner, free or not. But if you want to win that Dylan Sampson helmet, I highly suggest that you're one of our paid members. All right, coming up, Nico Iamaleava. Are you concerned about his confidence? My goodness, the topics are picked by Caleb. How could you not be? Stay tuned. 2 minutes. He's Caleb. I'm Dave, Off the Hook Sports.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, BanksJones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so we can bring some more people in. Great comments on the chat that we'll get to from time to time. Ahmad said Caleb knows his stuff. I don't know about all that. But
well, he's talking about when I once said that Tennessee basketball threw the SEC tournament game. Yeah, I said they should the head of the week, and everybody disagreed with me. And then Tennessee made the Elite Eight for only the second time in school history. So, you know.
Yeah. I mean, let's say he's right every once in a while.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, Caleb. After that Arkansas game, I think this is a pertinent question. Caleb, how concerned are you about Nico Iamaleava's confidence? How concerned are you about Nico Iamaleava's confidence? Goodness gracious. What is wrong with me? Caleb, how concerned are you about Nico Iamaleava's confidence?
I'm relatively concerned. I'm not like, oh my gosh, freak out, but I'm also not going to sit there and say that I don't see Nico Iamaleava as the guy with the moxie to just be able to absorb this and become better for it. I don't see, put it this way. Here's the two lines. If I could give it to you. There is Jared Garantano, who I feel sympathy for because he took a lot of beatings at Tennessee and he had a very terrible coach, but I do think he wilted with all the pressure surrounding him. Is that fair to say when he was at Tennessee?
Mm-hmm.
And then let's go the whole other end of the spectrum. Peyton Manning's rookie season in the NFL. Actually, I'm not going to throw Jared Garantano under the bus like that. Peyton Manning versus Ryan Leaf, their rookie seasons. When things went wrong for Ryan Leaf wilted and just collapsed, right? Just couldn't handle it. Peyton Manning had the worst rookie season, had the worst season for a starting quarterback in NFL history as a rookie. But as you know, he was so mentally tough. He absorbed it all, and he got better because of it. And in that line, I think Nico might be right smack in the middle right now.
Okay. So poll question is up. It leads me to 4 downs and the factors that should go into this decision, as 4 downs today brought to you by Work Trucks and Work Trucks LLC.com. 4 downs all about Nico's confidence. So the poll question is up. Caleb, it is how worried are you about Nico's confidence? Very, somewhat, not at all. We'll let that settle itself out, and I'll throw some factors in there that might sway you one way or another. Here we go.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, so factors that will play into Nico's confidence or lack thereof. What should we do, Cooper Mays, for people that want to talk
Iamaleava.
and be a part of the program?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you.
Coop here. First down.
NIL money. NIL money, I believe, puts more pressure on Nico. You can't be a starting quarterback at the University of Tennessee and walk around and not be noticed, especially when you're 6'6". But the exposure for him has been tenfold. In other words, a lot more people recognize him at this point in his career than did, say, Casey Clausen 5 starts in. I mean, that's just where it is. There's more pressure on him from NIL. So do you think that affects your confidence and his confidence in his game?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And I'll take it a step further. I'm very connected to a lot. You're more connected than I am to all the different media outlets that cover their teams in the SEC. Is it safe to say that Knoxville media is the equivalent, is the SEC's version of New York media with how they cover Tennessee? Which is to say that you get ripped if you don't live up to things. And what they do in New York is they bring up your contract every other day if you're not performing. You're a Yankee fan. You know how they did A-Rod. You don't think that?
Oh, yes. It's the biggest market other than Nashville, which cares about a lot of other things. So from a media perspective at Mississippi State, it might be like the old days when I did it. You have 6 to 8 reporters covering football practice. Now you have so many that they close practice.
Mm-hmm. And because they close practice, if they don't see Nico perform on the field, they're going to be harder on him than you guys would have been 20 years ago. You were covering practice, so if someone struggled on the field, you might write an article, Dave, wouldn't you? Like, you defended Arian Foster. You're like, look, he's performing well in practice. His fumbles aren't that bad if you really look at it. You were very fair to him. Reporters aren't going to be that fair to them anymore, are they? Because they don't get to see him in practice.
Well, that, and I mean, they're getting paid, and it's not a vendetta thing, Deion Sanders. It's just the fact is, I mean, it's fair game now that you're getting paid.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, so I was actually going to get into that. The media pressure, how big of a factor is that? I would hope you could stay away from that, but you can't unless you get a flip phone like Stetson Bennett, which isn't a bad idea. But excuse me, I think the media pressure is a big one.
Yes, the media pressure is huge. And one, like I just told you guys, Knoxville media is the New York media of the SEC. That's been borne out throughout history. That more than most other markets, Dave, I can just tell you they're very hard. I'm telling you what that, like, you don't know it since you worked in Knoxville media for 25 years. But as you know, you guys are very hard on Tennessee players who don't perform, and harder than most SEC schools. But then there's national media with Nico Iamaleava, because everybody knows that he's the $8 million man. And, you know, you're right. Someone brought up Pat Forty didn't hesitate to run his mouth after the loss. He won't be the first. And I know he's got a personal vendetta, but there will be people without vendettas that will come in and say something.
All right.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
The fact that he's from California. Now, I'm gonna give you both sides of this. He's from California. He does not know what a pressure cooker Knoxville is, because Tennessee football, it's a one-horse town. A little bit more now with basketball, but anyway, and baseball. But the University of Tennessee, it's a one-horse town. There's no talk about the Titans around here. I don't even hear them mentioned on local shows. So I'm going to argue that I feel better about his confidence because he's from California and he has that calm, cool demeanor like Casey Clausen had that made him so good on the road. So my argument is that it's actually a benefit that he's from California. But Caleb, if you want to go the other direction and say that he's suddenly been thrown into this pressure cooker that's unlike anything he's ever seen, you could probably convince me of that as well. And we'll take your thoughts on the message board, Caleb.
So I'd like to call Casey Clausen an anomaly, but you are onto something, because that's why Tom Brady was so clutch his whole career. He was a California quarterback, kind of a California cool kid. But from the other side, there's Aaron Rodgers, also from California. And I don't know if you notice, he's wilting in the New York market right now. He is collapsing, and he's getting his coach fired and blaming everybody but himself, as he typically does. And so I don't know where Nico falls into that category. I think I don't know his full background, but I do know that a lot of times quarterbacks from California can be sheltered a lot of times and not used to things. I mean, the thing about Southern California that you guys got to understand, we talked about it with John, and you said it earlier in the show, Dave, and this is from high school to the pros. If you're not winning, they're not going to give you a hard time in California. They're just not going to care. They're just not going to follow you. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's at the high school level. You're right. No one's asking him if he lost his high school game the other day.
Dylan says, I think that he's from Cali, gave him some bonus points. Yeah, I think that he takes this stuff in rhythm, so to speak. I mean, I don't think he's willing to chuck the towel in because he realizes there's still a lot to play for. So I pull up work trucks because fourth down is the most difficult, but it's the most difficult of the downs. It's a possession down, but also in particular, this question about Nico's confidence. I'll tell you what's easy, though. If you're a contractor in the service industry, it's all about work trucks. Work trucks, all about trucks. Trucks are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips. Trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed. Look at them all there. Pickup trucks of all sizes and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you that get you back on the road tomorrow in a dealership runaround. Work Trucks, that's a fact. If you're a contractor, you got to know about them. Work Trucks, Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. You need Work Trucks. Why risk chancing your future in business on the wrong piece of equipment that burns your time? WorkTrucksLLC.com to find the perfect truck, outfit it, make sure it fits your needs to a T. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com, proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here, fourth down.
His body language, does that make you more or less concerned about Nico Iamaleava? That would include running out of bounds on the final play with no time remaining on the clock.
Oh, yeah, his body language makes me more concerned because body language includes fumbling a snap that was perfect to you on the next to last possession.
Body language would include, even though it's not completely his fault, 2 strip sacks. I still think an elite quarterback has a better grip on the ball, and he talked about how the ball slipped out. So keep rolling.
Yeah. I give him a break for that because I just think it was his youth. No, the body language that hits me is that final drive. Fumbling the snap. And this is where he's totally different from Casey Clausen. I had to say it because, Dave, you may not remember. Do you remember Casey Clausen's first start on the road for Tennessee?
Alabama.
No, that was his first start, period.
Okay.
His first start on the road was the next week at South Carolina, a top 25 South Carolina team. And at the end of the game, do you remember Casey Clausen engineered a 80-yard drive, took 9 minutes off the clock, ran the whole 9 minutes off the clock in the fourth quarter to do it.
And on fourth down, he threw an incredible dig route to Dante Stallworth. That was a 4th and 14, I believe. It was an absolute dart. And quick Uncle Dave time. My favorite moment about that game is Albert Haynesworth, who, of course, was from South Carolina, and he was drug off the field by Bud Ford as he was giving the South Carolina student section the middle finger salute with both hands.
Gotta love Albert Haynesworth.
That was
man.
great. Just stood in front of him. Boom! There it goes, shaking it while Bud Ford's trying to pull a 330 man away from the student section. That was probably one of the 3 or 4 times I've been close to being in the middle of a riot.
Oh man,
no joke. And but that game that throw by Casey Clausen, I guess we all have our moments of when we believe that a player is going to be really, really good. That pass that he threw, do you remember that? The little dig route?
I don't remember the dig route. I remember 2 third-down conversions he had. Maybe one of them was a 4th down and it was to start with. I just remember him throwing to convert to do or die situations. I mean, I count 3rd down as do or die. I know it's not, but it's and I remember, and I was only 12 at the time. I just looked back on that game and I thought, I look back on it now and I'm like, God, that was clutch by Casey Clausen to lead that drive.
Yeah. It absolutely was. No question about it. I want to remind you that Asia Cafe is one of Hook's hangouts. That's right. That's where I go for a fantastic lunch or dinner. AsiaCafe.org. 5 locations to choose from right below. I also love their 6-to-1 Brazilian Cocoa Energy Booster Premix Instant White Coffee, sustained energy throughout the day. You can order that on that website, which is right down below, AsiaCafe.org. And the Lim Dynasty is fantastic. It's right here in Knoxville, Tennessee now. It's been around for over 100 years. You're going to love the coffee. The food is from guarded family secrets and absolutely unbelievable. One of Hooker's hangouts as not that kind. Come on, don't be silly. We'll have some gift certificates to give away to Asia Cafe as well. By the way, we have a request online where somebody has said, Caleb, can you research how many times that Tennessee's lost in orange pants? I don't know that, and I'm not going to ask you to look that up because I think it would be absolutely terrible to have to look that up. But I will offer you this, that I think the first time they wore orange pants in a number of years was at the Rose Bowl. And I was texting back and forth with the late athletic director, Mike Hamilton. I was like, what do you think of the pants? He goes, love them. I was like, yeah, they do look good. They didn't win that game. So that was like the first debut in a number of years, wasn't it?
No, they actually wore, that was the first time they wore white jerseys with orange pants.
Okay.
But I'll do you one better. 99 was the first time in 20 years that they wore all orange at Neyland Stadium. And it was right after they had just lost to Florida. They returned home. They're still a top 5 team, and they're hosting Memphis. And they had lost to Memphis in 96, and it was supposed to be a revenge game. And they were favored by 35 points. And they only won 17-16 because of an amazing catch by Bobby Graham down the sideline.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, their orange pants has – and then the next time they've donned them was the 2007 SEC Championship game where Ryan Perrilloux – and LSU's history with backup quarterbacks and John Chavis being dumbfounded with a backup quarterback, Did
you say dumbfounded? You broke up or just?
Yes, I said dumbfounded.
Okay.
Wow. No, yeah, John Chavis being like, "Oh, I don't know how to defend a backup quarterback." Totally different type of system. Like, I don't.
That's the only coach that's ever charged me, by the way. Charged after me. Yeah, and I thought, we were going to get in a tussle right there after practice. I thought it was going to be odd. And then his son also, while I was on the air one time, sent me a Facebook message and called me names and told me things that he was going to do to me. And
John Chavis' son has gotten mad at me. I'm not going to go at someone, but that is kind of like, look, John Chavis had a level of.
If he calls you a super B, you're probably going to, which he did. And you're probably
that might be true. Yeah, I have covered practices. I covered a couple of practices. I may have done it with you, not knowing who you were, because I was there in 2006. I will say John Chavis had the same level of intensity Ed Orgeron had when he would hype up his defense. I mean,
yeah, probably the same ACT score as well. 2 minutes and 5 Gators that you absolutely need to know
Dave,
about.
You're horrible.
Yeah. single-digit ACT score. So it should be a new nickname. 2 minutes. No, I'm kidding. Everything's going great for John Chavis.
I don't think he's kidding, guys.
No, last I heard, he's doing great. He's coaching middle school. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang convertible, $24,550. 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, $29,789. 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, $26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Alrighty, so we have a new poll question up, and it leads into the topic that I wanted to get to, and that is these fake injury things. Because to me, it's past the point of being even enjoyable or comical or anything like that. It's just downright annoying. Portions of the program brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier with Chattanooga Mortgage. Bruce did a fantastic job of helping me clean up my credit. Chat Mortgage with 2 T's, chatmortgage.com. So certainly check them out. All right, Caleb. The injuries that have become so incredibly prevalent in college football now that Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks, last I checked, they do not run any sort of a hurry-up offense, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yet Ole Miss was faking injuries against South Carolina and Kentucky, who also does not run any sort of high-tempo offense. Okay, so what is the poll question? Because something has to be done about this. What is the poll question now? And I want to hear your comments on the YouTube page, because we got to fix this. It is annoying, especially or even if you don't have a dog in the hunt. What's the poll question?
All right, so what should be done when a player fakes an injury? Nothing. Held out for a drive, held out for a quarter, injure him.
That's hot.
Yeah, just go ahead and club him right on the leg and say, don't do that again. But I'm going to.
So just so you know, for the funny thing, I'm a Grizzly fan, obviously. And when the Grizzlies had the grit and grind era with Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol, Blake Griffin and the Clippers had a history of flopping really bad. So and they, Memphis was a smaller market. So the Grizzlies would always get called for the foul. So Zach Randolph just decided, you know what? I'm going to get called for these fouls anyway. I think I'm just going to drag Blake Griffin and throw him to the ground every time he goes up for a layup anyway. And he did.
I hate to say this, but bank on it. Nothing can be done. And I'll tell you why. Bank on It is brought to you by Commercial Bank. Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day with better solutions, better technology. Commercial banks for personal and business. Commercial Bank, life made better. Nothing can be done about it as much as I hate it. I'll tell you why in 30 seconds.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank, life made better.
All right, Caleb, so I'm going to lean on the message board. Read Ahmad's comment first, and let me tell you why this won't work, as much as I love you, Ahmad.
Any fake injury needs to be held out for an entire quarter or even half. Teams love to do it against this Tennessee offense.
Yes, it's particularly a problem with Tennessee, but it's Lane Kiffin's way of playing defense, okay? As a matter of fact, I think there are 4 phases to Ole Miss's game. It is offense, defense, special teams, and faking injuries. You can't do that because it would alter the game way too much. Now, give me another one, like Justin has a good one. Justin Lefeva. I got the Lefeva for more Justin comments.
Held out for a drive or forfeit a timeout if he comes back in before the drive ends.
Justin may be onto something with the timeout, but I don't think that you can hold them out for a drive, because here's the flip side of that. It sounds good and it makes a lot of sense. I kind of like the timeout thing, though. I think you all surprised me on the message board. But you can't do the hold out for the remainder of the drive, because then players will stay in and put themselves at further risk that might think there's an injury. In other words, like Taylor Green, when we saw him go back out there, he knew he wasn't right after another play. And he knew it wasn't going to play the rest of the game. But there are times when players aren't completely sure. In Taylor Green's case, I'm sure he passed the ACL check, which is about 99% effective on the sidelines, or accurate. So I don't think that you can tell them they have to sit, because then they're going to feel something pop in their knee and they're going to stay out there. That's almost as concerning to me as the fake injuries, because I don't want a guy staying out there that could further injure himself, right?
No, I agree with you. And this is why, for people that don't understand why nothing's been done on this, this is the reason. If you don't, the second you put in any sort of rule where if you leave the field, you have to leave for a few more plays, you will see players try to push their way through when they shouldn't push their way through. And then that'll call for a permanent issue. The same thing's going to happen with the timeout forfeiture. And by the way, what happens if it's the last 2 minutes of the game and you need that timeout? You're, again, going to incentivize players to try to play through that injury. And so I don't even think that works. I
like that better than anything I've heard, though, guys. Good job on the message board, don't you?
Yeah, but I still don't think – I think you still hold – I think the best thing to do, Dave, is hold them out. And I think pick like maybe a drive. And here's why. I get your point because they might try to play through it. But if the injury's serious, Dave, they're going to fall over. They're going to stop playing and fall over if the injury's serious enough. And so I think it's a risk, but I also think that it's one where, what are we talking about here? It's one where they should probably be missing the full drive anyway if they're hurt like that.
Okay.
So
how about this possibility that you don't allow substitutions other than, now I know this is putting a lot more on the officials, but like, for instance, it was the Pegues guy and Walter Nolan that were doing a lot for Ole Miss that I saw. Okay, so you can only sub a defensive lineman. In other words, you can't run somebody from the secondary out there to, let's say in Tennessee's case, better defend the pass. What about that idea? Now, that puts more on the officials, because then you get into is James Pierce a defensive end, or is he a linebacker because he's an edge rusher?
Yeah, I don't like.
Is that just too complicated?
I think that's too complicated.
Yeah, I feel like it was good before I said it, and then I said it and I felt bad about it.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I just don't think that would work. I think the best thing you can do is force players to be held out for a certain period of time. Now, you could say, how about this? Now, this is really funny. This is awful. This would be dangerous. But, Dave, in basketball, right? Like, even if there's a player hurt, if there's a fast break, the refs don't call anything. They don't stop the play until there's a dead ball or there's a bucket made.
Oh, my gosh. So you're going to play 11 on 10 down the field?
So what if –
I'm
dead serious. What if a play – the refs – if the offense doesn't huddle, the refs can't stop play.
Say that again. If the
offense doesn't huddle and the clock is running, the refs can't stop play. There has to be a penalty or something. An injury can't stop.
So he's just
playing.
down.
He's just
and you're
down.
playing
And by the way, if he's down behind the line of scrimmage, it's an offside penalty.
That reminds me of when I had a couple buddies who went on to play college ball, and one at Vanderbilt and one at another school. And he called me and said, "You're not going to believe this. During practice, they don't even stop with an injury. They just move practice 20 yards down the field." Which is true. That's what and I knew that because I'd covered Tennessee's practices. They've got 3 practice fields. So I've been in situations in which 911 was called and they moved practice to another field and continued. It was Willie Miles. Do you remember him?
I remember him. Yep.
Yeah. They thought he had a spinal injury for a moment. Everything was okay. But they just moved practice. To the other field while the ambulance was pulling up, literally.
Go back to Bear Bryant at Junction, man, when his quarterback broke his back and all he said to the doctor was, "Man, bangs and bruises happen in football." And Bear Bryant himself dragged a broken leg 4 quarters in a game against Tennessee, of all people.
Okay, our poll question: what should be done when a player fakes an injury? Nothing. That's 2% held out for a drive, 50% held out for a quarter, 38% injure him gets 10% of the vote. Do you have to injure that said player where he's faking an injury, or can you injure him anywhere?
That's a good question. How about this? Okay, this might be a fair way to do it. By the way, I want to address something real quick before Shane Bieber looks like an idiot being the one bringing this up. South Carolina lost 27-3 to Ole Miss. You're telling me that they really, if Ole Miss didn't fake their injuries, you guys had a chance? Really, Shane?
Well, they didn't have a chance, but man, did you watch any of that game? The flow of the game was hard to watch.
Yes, but at the same time, South Carolina was never coming close. By the way, Spencer Rattler is going to get his first start this week for the Saints. But aside from that, South Carolina, they weren't winning that game, guys. This looks ridiculous, and I can't blame Ole Miss. I'm of the I'm coming around to no. You just don't stop play until
no.
I'm kind of coming around to where in football, play doesn't stop until there's a dead ball. That's where I'm at.
Caleb, what if there's a turnover and they run downfield and they end up stomping on Walter Nolan? That would be awful.
Wait, if there's a turnover, the play wouldn't stop for a turn. The play would stop after a turnover. That's a dead ball after a turnover.
Well, no, I'm saying that you're talking about just leaving a player writhing on the ground.
Yes. Well, then leave him riding on the. They do it in basketball. Wait, they do it in soccer. They do it in hockey. They do it in basketball. Do it in football. You don't stop for an injury until the play you don't stop for an injury until there's a dead ball. Whether a player ran out of bounds, an incomplete pass, a penalty, a touchdown, a field goal, boom. I have fixed college football. I have fixed it. There, you don't stop until there's a penalty, until there's a dead ball.
Okay. Well, if you're running a hurry-up offense, Caleb, what could quickly happen is that player's writhing on the ground at midfield, and there's a turnover, and then he gets trampled. That's the worst idea ever. But Ahmad's right. Ole Miss had like 10 timeouts because of that. It was absurd. So I'm not a big Shane Beamer guy, but I'm going to go ahead and say good for him to call it out. I don't care if it's Clark Lee calling it out, whoever it is calling it out. Somebody needs.
Well, Clark Lee has a lot more credibility calling it out right now than Shane Beamer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Stat of the day is what? We get to the stat of the day, and that's brought to you by our friends at City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company that could tell you need a new unit that could cost thousands or more. Pardon me. CityHeatandAir.com, So Caleb has basically just decided that it's time for the Gladiator Wars in Rome, and that's what the SEC and college football is going to become. And just pray to God that you don't get stomped.
Yep.
All right.
Stat of the day. Saturday will mark the first time since 1952 that Tennessee is a top 10 team playing Florida. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Not 1952, excuse me. Since 1940. The first time since 1940 since Tennessee is a top 10 team playing Florida when Florida is unranked.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll give it up for that one.
Last year,
Yeah. Stat of the day today brought to you in part by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. HOOKED for 10% off. And by the way, if you're shopping for some Big Orange memorabilia, you can go to Hound Dogs of Knoxville, hdknoxville.com, hdknoxville.com. Champions look good in orange. It's a pretty incredible stat. Since 1940, Tennessee has never been in the top 10 with Florida unranked.
When they're playing each other. Yeah, this is the first time. Now, last year was the first time since 76 that Tennessee was in the top 25 playing an unranked Florida team. It's also the first time Tennessee ever lost when they were in the top 25 playing an unranked Florida team. So,
Ahmad's got it. Find the coach.
How do you know? But here's the thing, Dave. How are you going to find the coach? It's chump change. There's reward. The rewards of winning outweigh the fine you're going to get. There's incentives in all these contracts.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, I'm sorry. I am team. Just don't stop playing. Don't stop playing.
I mean,
don't stop playing until there's a dead
come
ball.
up with some zingers in our 2.5 years or so working together.
And by the way, yeah. if a player's down, what you're talking about, and there's a turnover running out past the other field, the player will get trampled. That actually won't happen. You know why? If the player's down on that side of the field, well, he would be behind the line of scrimmage, so he would draw an offside penalty. He's offsides.
Okay, so now you're going to penalize him?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes. He's offsides.
Hey, coach, I'm really hurt. Well, you better get your big rear off the ground because you're not only putting yourself at jeopardy for getting trampled like Pompolona with the Bulls, but you're also getting us a 5-yard penalty, which is more.
Obviously, you can't do this because you're right. Because there are serious injuries where you got to bring the stretcher out quickly. If what I'm saying was true, DeMar Hamlin would have died on the football field last year because, again, you have to bring the stretchers out quickly. So I think the most effective thing, honestly, I'm just going to be honest, really the only thing you can really do is a player who goes down has to sit out a drive. Sorry. That's the best you can do is they have to sit out the rest of that drive and then the next drive, basically.
By the way, how ironic was it that Tua Tagovailoa put his head down against DeMar Hamlin to suffer his last concussion?
That is crazy. That was wild.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. The Gators that you got to know about. Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your pair.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang convertible, 24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, 29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, 26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
5 Gators that you need to know and be concerned about, or at least worried about or thinking about, as Tennessee plays at Neyland Stadium in yet another night game at 7 o'clock. So we'll have a post-game show with you. Last Look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn right after the program, and a ton of content on offthehooksports.com, including Jimmy Hams's post-game column. We'll have all of that up within an hour and a half, 2 hours. I mean, we're churning. So we appreciate you for visiting the site. We recently hit a record number of visitors to the site, which is fantastic. So I'm going to tell Caleb right now, if he's picked the right 5, he's got 5 Gators to watch. And if I believe that they'll have an impact on the game, I'll say
that's hot.
Yes. And if not,
they're like, that is total bullshit.
Yes, because who better to call out the Florida Gators than Peyton Manning?
Yeah, no sarcasm there whatsoever.
All right. What do you got for our first Gator to watch?
I would like to point out before we go any further that Peyton Manning is responsible for ending the career of the most successful Florida Gators quarterback, arguably in history, because when Peyton Manning decided to go to Denver, Denver traded Tim Tebow away and he never got a starting job again.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
He wasn't going to get a real starting job anyway.
He led the Broncos to a playoff win the year before.
Stop. One guy, rest his soul, I can't remember his name, the receiver that passed away, he took it to the house. I mean, that was
Demarius Thomas.
Wasn't that game like 17-13 or something stupid?
No, Tebow played well, but what the Steelers did was they decided, let's just put 9 in the box and play man coverage on everybody on the outside and not even have a safety because we don't think Tim Tebow can do it. I'm like, okay, Tim Tebow can beat you if you do that. But
it's probably 1 in 10 in the NFL that he could have beaten you. I still think the logic was sound. All right. Who are the Gators to watch, Caleb?
All right. So first, I'm going to do 2 together because I'm going to do the 2 quarterbacks. And they are 2 of my 5. But DJ Lagway and Graham Mertz, and Tennessee has to watch for both of them. Jimmy's right. Graham Mertz is completing 77% of his passes. Now, he's averaging 8.5 yards an attempt. You would think if you were completing 77% of your passes, you'd be averaging like 12 yards an attempt. But he's it's like that year McGuire hit 70 home runs and still couldn't bat 300. It's kind of like that. So, like, yes, he's completing 77% of his passes, but he is being very efficient. And I think Tennessee needs to watch for him. And then number 4 is DJ Lagway, who will come in and is completing 69% of his passes. And he is averaging 12 yards an attempt. And DJ Lagway also is a dual threat.
I'm not worried about either one of these dudes. If Tennessee plays its defense, I don't think they're game changers. And they're going to be out there taking snaps, don't get me wrong. And we need to know who they are. But I don't think there's a guy, at least with Taylon Green, I thought he could escape the pocket and do some things. And DJ Lagway throws a great downfield ball, but I think Tennessee, when you give me one that I think could change the game no matter what Tennessee does, I'll give you this.
That's hot.
All right, Caleb, what do you got?
All right, so number 3, because those are 2 together, I'm going to go. There's only one defender Tennessee really needs to worry about, and it's the outside linebacker, George Gums Jr. And the reason he's the one defender they need to worry about is because Florida's best pass rusher is Tyreek Sapp. But Billy Napier, because he is a detail-oriented genius, is insistent on starting Cameron James over Tyreek Sapp. So he's not going to see the field as much as he should, even though he leads the team in sacks and tackles for a loss. And
okay.
So
I know that it's Tyreek, but I don't think we have to get the A in there.
Okay, sorry.
Don't you think it's just Tyreek?
Probably.
Tyreek?
But anyways, George Gums is the outside linebacker. He has 4.5 tackles for a loss, 2.5 sacks. And not only have Lance Hurd and John Campbell struggled in pass pro, but based on what Mike Stoll told us yesterday, they have very slow feet, which is to say that when you send outside linebackers on complex split schemes, that's when they're at their absolute worst. And I'm pretty sure that's what Florida's going to do, and Tennessee needs to prepare for it. So George Gums is who they need to watch out for.
Okay, I would have gone with Tyreek because he's the head of that Reed and Tyreek defense. Reed and Reed. Tyreek action. I think that I've got something there, but it needs to be workshopped.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
I know, Peyton, that was bad. Caleb, what other Gators do we need to know about?
All right, so I'm going to go back to the offense. Number 2 on their list is their go-to receiver, Elijah Badger. He's got 17 catches for 346 yards and 2 touchdowns on the year. And very fast player, transferred from Arizona State, which is funny enough where Jaden Rashada went to after Florida couldn't pay him NIL money. But there are questions about Tennessee secondary, so they need to maintain him. They need to key in on him as much as they possibly can.
That's hot.
I'll give you that one, especially after Tennessee's not tested secondary was tested against a very average passing offense and gave up some big plays and nearly 300 yards. Who's next?
Yep. And finally, the most important player on this team for Florida that Tennessee's got to watch out for is Montrell Johnson. He's got 58 carries for 288 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also has 12 catches for 56 yards on the year. With DJ Lagway in, it's even more difficult to contain him. This is why I said yesterday the pressure is going to be on the Tennessee football linebackers once again to make sure that he doesn't go off. Montrell Johnson is a very, very dangerous player, guys. Last year, Tennessee relatively kept him in check because he only had 12 carries for 23 yards and an 18-yard grab, but he still had a touchdown. Tennessee has to maintain him at all times.
Okay, what happens if I hit both these buttons at the same time?
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Okay. I think he's a very good running back. I don't understand how you can't have, however we want to pronounce it, Tyreek Sapp on there.
Because Billy Napier's not starting him.
Well, yeah, but he might start this week. I mean, to me, he could flip the game as much as anybody that you've named. He's either coming into his own or Billy Napier, surely to goodness, is going to make a decision to get him out there.
But Dave, you don't understand the details of Billy Napier, okay?
Yes, he's a very detail-oriented coach.
Yes, okay. This is in Tyreek Sapp. You have to understand the details of why he needs to ride the bench the same way you just didn't understand the details of why Jamal Lewis had to ride the bench and sit behind Mark Levine for 3 games, okay?
Well, that was a whole different problem. Tennessee didn't run the ball. I think Mark Levine only had like 9 carries in that loss to Florida. I mean, they didn't run the ball, so I don't know that it matters who was back there.
I mean, you just don't know. You got to pay attention to details, okay? And Billy Napier's details tell him that Tyreek Sapp requires he be on the bench in this game. And, the only time that he will go out on the field is when Florida's about to return a punt and Billy Napier needs to run 2 guys out with the same number so he can get a penalty to keep Tennessee on the field. Guys, I'm obviously joking. I think Tyreek Sapp is a danger. I just don't think Billy Napier plays him enough. And so I think that's a huge problem. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on there. I mean, it's not like you're Georgia or Alabama where you can afford to, not play better players because you're so loaded. I'll also say this. I'm making fun of Billy Napier. When we talk about, substitution decisions, Dave, what's the worst one you ever covered? Because for me, it's obvious. For me, the worst one, and I don't even care it's Tennessee, it's starting Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker. What is the worst personnel depth chart decision you have ever covered where a player was chosen to start over somebody else and you thought that was just stupid from the start and you were proven right?
Stupid from the start? Because I didn't necessarily think Milton stupid from the start.
I thought Milton was stupid from the start, and I wrote it at the time. I don't think Milton is stupid. I thought starting Milton was stupid.
Right,
from the
before
start.
they even played a play?
Yes. When you were covering Tennessee, what was a depth chart decision? And I don't mean like putting Leonard Little at defensive end instead of middle linebacker with me, but you can maybe consider that. No, I mean like one player was selected to start over somebody else, and you were just like, that is dumb. This player's better.
I can't think of one that stands out. In retrospect, Tennessee probably should have started Rick Clausen instead of Eric Ainge because the entire team wanted Rick Clausen to play.
But the truth of the matter is I side with Fulmer on that because when they did go with Rick Clausen, finally.
Yeah.
Rick
Players
Clausen,
should fall in line with a more talented player. So I don't know that that's a good one by me. I'm having trouble thinking of one, to be real honest with you.
Not like starting Joey Matthews against Southern Miss in 2000.
Definitely Joey Matthews. That's a good one.
Like
I was pretty sure that he wasn't ready to go. There you go. You answered your own question. I can't come up. That's one of those because I did high school football at the time. So I did one of his games. And you wanted him to do well because he was a local guy. But in my heart of hearts, I knew that wasn't going to happen.
What about Dooley starting Matt Sims over Tyler Bray?
Yeah, again, that Tyler Bray's a nincompoop. So did he do something the week leading up to? I mean,
that's true. Oh, I got it. I think I'm going to win. Are you ready for this one?
Well, Jamal Lewis not starting over Mark Levine, even though they didn't run the ball, and I don't think it cost them, was the ultimate example.
True. But I think the most obvious one, and I'll just go ahead and say it, and I say this with all due respect to this kid, because I'm sure he's a good kid, and he was a veteran at the time. But when Larry Slade and John Chavis, when Tennessee was headed out to Cal, decided that they were going to start Gerard Parrish over Eric Berry because Gerard Parrish had the experience.
That was not good.
Yeah. We've really hard.
And the ultimate one, I think, though, because it was proven over time, would have to be Jalen Hurd and Alvin Kamara.
That's true, but that was all. They kind of split reps. That was really dumb. I agree.
But they split reps 2/3 to Hurd's side because they paid him, and they didn't want him to leak that information out. And no, but you don't have to know football. I mean, my wife barely watches football, and she could have seen that Alvin Kamara is by far the better player.
Yes, I agree. That was Butch Jones had to be proven right that Jalen Hurd shouldn't have been a defensive end too. And Jalen Hurd, you're right. I mean, again, not only did they pay him, Butch Jones was trying to hold. I'm actually going to defend him somewhat. He was trying to hold the locker room together, and he took a kid who has some of the worst parenting of any recruit ever. I mean, Jalen Hurd's parents should be ashamed of themselves. They sabotaged his career. I'll say that.
One very fun topic and one serious topic for a moment. If you'll hang tight, just 1 minute, and check out TriStar hats. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. HOOK for 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TristarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOK. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Very serious topic here for a second before we get into a fun topic, and that is how the storms might affect the game. And I'm talking about Hurricane Milton that is hitting the panhandle already, and we were going to have Edgar Thompson on for the Orlando Sentinel. He wasn't able to join us, says there's stuff already flying around everywhere. And yes, we think that Florida is prepared, but you never know, as Caleb pointed out, what can happen in a storm like this. So, Caleb, I do think that there will be several Florida players and maybe some Tennessee players that are from Florida that will be thinking about that storm on Saturday during the game. And I've seen that. You and I were discussing it at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. I've seen that happen before, where I think the Tennessee LSU game that was played in 2005.
Yep.
I
believe it was moved to a Monday. And I still remember driving down and still being, goodness gracious, Caleb, 50 miles from Baton Rouge, and trees were down like an A-bomb had gone off. So, and most of LSU's players are from the area. They do such a great job recruiting there. I do think that at the end of that game, I think they came out in that game, and remember they had the early lead, and that was the Eric Ainge bouquet toss when he got thrown into the goalpost. And I think they came out with a lot of emotion, but I think because of the week, that emotion was spent later in the game. So I'm not saying that this is reason to get excited about either team. I mean, this is a game. We're talking about real people living and dying. But I do think that there will be some Florida players, more than Tennessee players, because they have more players from the state of Florida that are probably going to be thinking about that on Saturday. And I can't blame them, because the lives of your friends and families and loved ones are way more important than if the Vols beat the Gators or vice versa.
I agree. Can absolutely affect play. Now, does it affect play because of what's on their minds, or does it affect play because of it's affecting how they practice and their travel schedule and things like that? Nick Saban had, God, far be it from me to say Billy Napier can do for his team what Nick Saban can do for his team. I know that's like leaps and bounds differences, but when Hurricane Harvey hit Texas a few years ago, Alabama actually had quite a few players from Texas on their team. And Saban basically told this story. I mean, it's funny that he's from the Midwest because he sounds like a Southerner sometimes when he tells these stories. But he said that when he was a young kid working at his dad's grocery shop, he was really upset one day because his girlfriend had broken up with him. And he took it out on a customer. And his dad came to him and said, this is a real story. He said to Nick Saban, I know you're upset that your girlfriend broke up with you. So you got one problem right now. Your girlfriend broke up with you. But if you treat a customer like that again, I'm going to fire you. And then I'm going to beat the hell out of you because you got fired from your job. And he said, so you can have one problem or you can have three problems. Now, I don't know if that was the best analogy when his players were worrying about the hurricane and he was trying to say this is a business trip. But I think what the point he was trying to drive home was, don't let other issues, no matter how devastating they may be, affect your job and the role in front of you as a football team. And I wonder how that will happen with Florida. Now, again, Nick Saban, you trust to get his players focused to do that way more than you trust Billy Napier to get his players focused to do that. And that's part of it. And you're right. And that LSU game in 2005, what I distinctly remember was 2 weeks before LSU had played Arizona State, and that was when Katrina had hit. If you remember when you guys went down to Baton Rouge, that was when Hurricane Rita hit.
Right.
So Katrina had hit. They had to move the game from Baton Rouge to Arizona, and they played at Arizona State. That was when Jamarcus Russell. It's actually a thrilling game. Les Miles' first win as a head coach. Jamarcus Russell converted like a 4th and long to win that game. LSU goes home to play Tennessee. And yeah, they jumped out to a 21-0 lead. But honestly, I remember watching that game, Dave, and you probably were covering it. You didn't think LSU got that 21-0 lead because of anything they did. Tennessee just looked awful in that first half. And I think a lot of people
So it affected their game prep. Is that what you're saying?
I think it affected their game prep significantly because I thought LSU played horrible that game.
Well, again, I think Philip Fulmer thought it should be postponed, and Philip Fulmer, like a lot of us, don't make those sorts of opinions or develop those sorts of opinions unless it benefits us. So I do believe that he either thought that LSU was the better team or they would be emotionally charged, or for whatever reason, Tennessee was not as prepared as they should have been. And listen, there's this crescendo of a week through practice that leads to a game. So you can say, oh, well, they just moved the game to 2 days back. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, it is kind of a big deal. But I think the biggest thing, the most pervasive thing that if you're a Florida fan, you would be worried about, you're probably more worried about your home. Again, I'm not trying to minimize what is going on. You're all in my thoughts and prayers, but just in terms of how it pertains to the game, they say you lose yourself as an athlete sometimes in those 4 hours, and that's your escape, and it might be, but most oftentimes we're not having that discussion when the actual issue is going on, right? Like, yeah. The other one that's kind of similar is, would you leave the U.S. Open if your wife went in labor? Okay. So everybody's different. I would say that I don't want to know if she goes in labor, and don't tell me. I mean, I know that sounds awful, but it's true. That's how I would view it. And then when I get done, we'll find out if I got a baby or not. Okay. Let's hope it doesn't go to extra holes. Well, but in this particular case, you can't get away from it, Caleb. It's going to be on your phone. You're going to be calling family. And I don't believe it's just going to be an escape, because it's happening at that very moment, or at least news is filtering in. I mean, how many players are going to immediately run to their locker and check their phone to make sure that their family's okay?
Yeah, luckily for them, the hurricane's happening now and it'll be gone by the weekend. So I think the bigger question at that point will be there will be recovery efforts, and some of their families will be affected by the recovery. And they were like, okay, yeah, how, where are they? Are they at a place to stay? Where are you? That'll still be there. I think it's going to more, because of when it's hit, Dave, I think it's going to affect Florida practice wise than it is the actual game. I think the way and you've talked about this all the time, the emotions in a game, it's not that they affect the game. They don't affect the game by your emotions in the game itself. They affect the game because of how you practice the week leading up to the game. And that's where you're right. The issue with Florida is, I do want to just on a very, and again, this is a very serious topic, but in a lighthearted way, I want to point out, Dave, that, that 05 Tennessee LSU game, as I told you, in our production meeting, that was one of the earliest coaching masterpieces by Les Miles. I mean, that's the other reason LSU lost that game, was because Les Miles. There's a famous photo. You'll love this. LSU late in the game, after the game was tied, got an interception. There's a famous photo of Les Miles running to the refs to call a timeout. And he's like, he didn't get the timeout off because coaches couldn't call timeouts from the sideline at that point. But the reason it was hilarious was because, why are you trying to call a timeout after an interception? I mean, yeah. But that was Les Miles at his absolute best. And boy, was that. I mean, at the end of the first half, LSU was up 21-0. Tennessee can't move the ball. And Les Miles tries to call a play for Jamarcus Russell with 8 seconds left and no timeouts. And Jamarcus Russell scrambles and the clock runs out. If they just settle for the field goal, they go up 24-0. They're inside the 10-yard line.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you think you would be able to put it on your mind, out of your mind, specifically in a game of football? Because a game of football, you only play half the game, offense, defense. So there's times for it to creep into your mind. I think that in every other sport, especially basketball, you're playing offense or you're playing defense. I just think the nature of football makes it easier for your mind to wander a little bit.
I actually agree. I just don't know if practicing makes it easier for your mind to wonder a little bit. And again, it's the practicing leading up to the game is where I wonder their mentality is more than anything else.
Okay, I'm with that. All right, so which coach's seat has warmed up the most this season? Now, we both think that Shane Beamer is going to eventually be fired at South Carolina, correct?
Correct. And this is just in the SEC, right?
Yes, just in the SEC. Okay, so Shane Beamer has to be on the list. But I'll tell you what, there's another coach that it warmed up for. I'm not saying it's hot. I'm not even saying it's lukewarm, but it's way warmer than it was before the season. Last Look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
It's your namesake. It's Kalen DeBoer. Not quite your namesake, but close. And I think, listen, if Florida stumbles, they had, it was the Malachi Moore kid who was acting like a bit of a jackwagon.
Yeah, lost his emotions.
Yeah,
I give him a break for that, though.
Okay. Well, he could lose that team with a loss to Vanderbilt. You also have a lot of players that have a championship ring already. And you have a lot of players that, such as was it Tyrone Prothro, who was talked into coming back because of NIL money. I think that team.
Not Tyrone Prothro. That's
excuse me. What's his name? The offensive lineman that left and came back.
Caden Proctor, was that it?
Yes, Caden Proctor. Yes. Sorry, not Prothro. Prothro's still hurting. But
Mike Shula owes him a whole NFL career.
Yeah, so I think that seat's considerably warmer because it could potentially splinter that team. Losing to Vanderbilt, I don't think even Kalen DeBoer realizes what a big deal that is. Unless Vanderbilt goes on to win 6, 7, 8 games this year, which they're not going to do, that is a very significant loss. That's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever played Rook, where it's kind of like spades, but you have the Rook card. Have you ever played Rook?
I haven't, but I know Rook.
Okay, so you have the bird, and the bird, the Rook card, is able to trump all, okay? So you automatically win if you got the Rook. All right, this is the type of card that you throw down the Vanderbilt loss if 2 years from now they're waffling on Kalen DeBoer. You say that Dad blamed Vanderbilt game back in 2024. That's why I think the seat is warmed up. I don't think he's going to lose his job this year, but I don't think that a loss to Vanderbilt is just forgotten. He seemed to think after the game that it's no big deal. And Vanderbilt may prove to be a very respectable program. I would say that somebody's going to hire Clark Lee away before that happens. But that seat's not feeling as cozy and comfortable as it was 5 weeks ago.
All right, I'm going to defend Kalen DeBoer, but I'm going to tell you why I agree with you, because I think Kalen DeBoer understands better than what Alabama fans understand. And here's what I mean by that, Dave. We just talked about early in the show about the level of parity in college football. That makes you more vulnerable to upsets against teams like Vanderbilt. Is it fair to say than they ever were under Nick Saban?
Yes.
So that's out there. You are going to more and more often have 10-2 teams reach the college football playoff and even get first-round byes. But Dave, you and I both know Alabama fans won't be content with the first-round bye in the playoff if that first-round bye comes with a 10-2 record. Like, I think with Alabama, it is one quality loss a year is all the fan base will take. And they're not going to understand the changing landscape of college football that 10-2 and 9-3 is going to become more the norm than it is the outlier for national championship contenders. And I don't think Alabama fans get that. So that's the problem. So I think Kalen DeBoer's seat is warmer, but I don't know if it should be, because I think the level of parity in college football now makes Vanderbilt the exact type of game Nick Saban himself was capable of dropping back in the day.
Let me take this another step further, because again, we're not talking about coaches getting fired, but warmed up the most this season.
Well, yeah, because Billy Napier's went from hot to like insano.
Yeah, and I should have had Billy Napier on there, but I don't. But what about Lane Kiffin? There's just like there's extenuating circumstances at Alabama, there are same but different circumstances at Ole Miss, and that is, it seems like he's flirted with every other job. So, yeah,
I think Ole Miss is very self-aware of what they are and that they know they're lucky to have Lane Kiffin.
I agree, but at some point, if he were to turn in an 8-4, 7-5 season, there would be some people. I'm sick of him flirting with everybody, and I would just as soon him be gone.
There's a clear-cut answer to this question, Dave, by the way. And it's not Lane Kiffin or Kalen DeBoer.
Is it Hugh Freeze?
It's easily Hugh Freeze. And it pains me to say that because he's just a very well-known protector of women and underage women in particular. He really tries to make sure that older men don't prey on them. He's just such a good human being. It's so hard for me. It's such a good Christian man. I mean, Pastor Hugh tweets Bible verses. I mean, he coached at Liberty, which is just one of the greatest, finest Christian institutions out there. It just really hurts me to say that Hugh Freeze's seat is warm, because people in your face for Christianity like that are always they're always the finest individuals possible, just like the 2008 Florida team. Okay. And it's Hugh Freeze and Urban Meyer are just class act standards, and and Joe Paterno. But yes, it's Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze told everybody in the offseason, it's entering his second year, that he didn't need to go get a quarterback because he had one. And he knew, and he was making it, and he didn't say it out loud, but he was basically saying, doesn't matter who I have a quarterback. I'm the brains of this offense. I'll make the offense go if I get the weapons. Turns out you kind of needed a quarterback. And Auburn's 2-4 now. And it's not letting up. They still have Alabama down the road. They're playing at Alabama this year, so they're not going to win that game. That's a loss. They're visiting Missouri. They have a bye, but they're visiting Missouri in 2 weeks. They're visiting Kentucky, and they have Texas A&M. Dave, I got to be honest with you. I see 8 losses on this schedule. They're going to be underdogs in 4 more games. So if Vegas gets it right, Auburn's going to finish 4-8. That's not acceptable his second year at Auburn.
Okay, I'm going to do a much better job of putting the poll question up because I've got 4 good ones now. Again, this is warmed up the most this season. So going from 0 degrees to 5 degrees is significant, which I think is about where Kalen DeBoer is. So which coach's seat has warmed up the most this season? Kalen DeBoer, Hugh Freeze, Shane Beamer, Billy Napier. We know that Beamer and Napier came into this with warm seats already. Napier seems to have gotten things going a little bit in the past couple of games. So if I had to,
explodingly hot.
What?
I still think his seat is exploding hot.
I agree, but the question is warmed up the most this season. So given that, I would say Hugh Freeze, hands down. I don't even think it's close. I would say Shane Beamer.
I think it's Hugh
Billy.
Freeze.
I'd actually have Billy Napier, the way I phrase the question, is last on this. Which SEC's coaches seat has warmed up the most? I mean, it hasn't warmed up that significantly much. Florida is not a horrible football team. They're doing some bad stuff with their quarterbacks, but especially if Tennessee wins on Saturday, then we're having a much different conversation about Billy Napier and his future at Florida.
Yes, we are. Okay, Dave, he's not on this list and people are going to call me crazy. And again, we're talking of like from 0 to whatever. So with this coach, it's like -100 to like maybe -5 because like he should be the most stable coach in college football. But could we see Kirby Smart's seats a little bit hotter because of just all the discipline issues at Georgia?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like if Georgia
starts called out the fans, that's another trump card. That's another rook. That is people. If at some point 2 or 3 years down the road, they're saying, should we keep Kirby? Should we not? I really didn't like it when he called me out because I'm paying $25,000 a year for 4 seats.
And you're right. And by the way, this was why Mark Richt was there for so long, right? Whatever you want to say about Mark Richt, he's probably one of the best people to be a head coach. And he was really good. He was just a good guy, good to the fans. Georgia never got in trouble. And that allowed him a lot of goodwill, didn't it? For a long time.
Certainly did.
Yeah. I think that Kirby Smart, if you're winning, if you get a couple titles, it's okay. But the minute things go a little south, man, this stuff will start to be used against you. And the best example I have that I can bring up is Larry Coker at Miami. Larry Coker won a national title, got cheated out of a second one, should have gone undefeated his first 2 years, and if it wasn't for a terrible pass interference call, he would have been. But the minute Miami went like 7-5 one year, all the talk of all the arrests and the discipline issues that people talk about with Miami.
But the difference is he didn't build that. I mean, the talent. I mean, he didn't build the talent. Butch Davis built the talent.
Well, the city of Miami built the talent, because I think that was at the time, that was the easiest place in the world to recruit, wasn't it?
Wait, just a second. Butch Davis texted me. He said, tell Butch Jones, thanks for ruining my name. All right. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Hit the like and subscribe button for Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Fridays mean Ollie Lane, VFL. Finally Friday, as we join you weekdays at 10 a.m. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. banksandjones.com. For Caleb, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the